The first shadow came at noon. It wasn't a cloud nor a storm. It was something vast, something alien, sliding across the sky like a continent that had broken free from Earth's gravity. Birds scattered in screaming flocks. Dogs howled. Cell phones died in hands across 3 continents as the great black mass blotted out the sun. People stared upward, shielding their eyes, whispering names they hadn't said since childhood prayers. And then, the silence broke. A sound like tearing. Metal and insect wings filled the sky. It was not one ship. It was a fleet. Dozens, no, hundreds, of leviathans, their hulls gleaming like obsidian and bone. They were shaped like blades, curved and jagged, with spines that pulsed as if alive. Red slits glowed across their undersides like the eyes of something crawling across the heavens. And then came the voice. It wasn't English. It wasn't human. It was a screeching, buzzing roar that rattled glass and made teeth ache, broadcast into every speaker, every device, every radio wave on Earth. You are claimed. You are nothing. You are prey. The world froze. On the news, military analysts scrambled to explain. The ships bore no resemblance to anything ever recorded by SETI, or any shadow program whispered about in rumor. No diplomatic hail, no attempt at communication. Just a declaration of ownership like wolves marking territory. They called themselves the Krill. They came not as conquerors in the human sense, not to rule, not to govern. They came as predators. And to predators, humans were not opponents. They were food. At first, the attacks were scattered. Black pods shaped like wasp nests rained down into fields, deserts, city outskirts. When they cracked open, they spilled forth creatures that looked like armored mantises, 7 feet tall with scything claws and multifaceted eyes that glowed a wet yellow. Their movements were quick, jerking, insect-fast. They carried spears of bone and rifles that hissed corrosive plasma. They didn't waste time with demands. They began harvesting. In a village in Kenya, entire families were dragged screaming into cages woven of hardened resin. In rural Kansas, a farmhand watched his neighbors pulled apart, their bones stacked in ritual piles. In Brazil, hunters who had once stalked jaguars found themselves stalked instead, their bodies strung up like trophies in the treetops. The Creole laughed, or at least, their clicking, rasping voices carried a rhythm that was unmistakably cruel. To them, Earth was a buffet table finally opened after centuries of being ignored. The world's militaries fought back. Jets scrambled, tanks rolled, missiles fired, but the Krill seemed unconcerned. They swatted planes out of the sky like insects, let tanks burn, let soldiers die. The humans' weapons were primitive, predictable. To the Krill, this was not war. It was the first hunt. But something was wrong. On a hillside in Virginia, a Krill squad returned to their drop pod with fewer hunters than they had deployed. A missing unit. Unacceptable. Their commander clicked in irritation, mandibles twitching. Report. A hunter hissed back. They resisted. The bipeds. The commander's wings rattled with amusement. Resistance? From cattle? The hunter did not laugh. Its carapace was scratched, dented. They fight. They bleed. And they do not run. That was the first warning. In Mongolia, a Krill nestmaster watched as the humans they had penned simply stared at their captors in silence. Not weeping, not pleading. Eyes unblinking, calm, like wolves behind bars. In the Amazon, a pack of Krill vanished in the undergrowth. They had chased a lone human who ran laughing into the trees. Hours later, their comms cut to static, followed by one chilling sound, the same laughter. The Krill were predators, but predators survive by instinct. And instinct was whispering something unsettling in their hive minds. Earth was not behaving like prey. Across the planet, fires burned. Cities screamed. Humanity bled. Yet in the shadows, something stirred. Hunters in camo paint moved through forests. Old veterans dusted off rifles that hadn't fired since wars long past. Tribes that had lived with tooth and claw for centuries sharpened blades and whispered war songs. The krill thought they had found a feast, but what they had actually found was a world that had been forged for millions of years in the crucible of predator and prey. A world where survival wasn't an option, it was law. And humanity. Humanity had learned long ago that when monsters came in the night, you did not hide. You hunted them back. The first night of the invasion was drenched in firelight. From Kansas plains to Mongolian steppes, the krill pods hit the ground like hives bursting open. Their hunters spilled out in waves, armored mantises with claws that gleamed wetly in the moonlight, their wings vibrating with a low, droning hum. They moved with the confidence of apex predators. To them, this was a harvest. In rural Nebraska, the pod captain of one hunting unit watched as his warriors dragged men, women, and children from their homes. Resin shackles bound wrists. Those who resisted were gutted, their corpses hung from barn beams as warnings. The pod captain clicked in amusement, savoring the scent of blood. The bipeds screamed and wept, exactly as prey should. But then, the screaming stopped. He turned. In the torchlight, one farmer stood barefoot in the dirt, face streaked with ash. He held only a pitchfork. His family had been taken, yet his eyes showed no despair. Only fury. When the krill lunged, the farmer didn't run. He drove the pitchfork through the alien's eye. The pod captain recoiled. The farmer was torn apart moments later, but the image burned into the commander's mind. Prey that attacked. Across the Atlantic, a different kind of resistance began. In the Scottish Highlands, fog rolled thick through the hills. Krill hunters stalked through the mist, their armor gleaming, mandibles clicking. They expected to find scattered villagers. Instead, they found silence. A scout crouched, antennae twitching. Something moved in the fog. Too heavy, too deliberate. The first shot cracked like thunder. A krill's skull exploded, ichor splattering the stones. The others shrieked and fired blindly into the mist. But the humans had chosen their ground well. From the cliffs, old rifles barked. From the heather, blades flashed. The krill were dragged into the fog one by one. Their shrieks carried across the moors until only silence remained. By dawn, the villagers emerged, scarred, bloodied, victorious. Behind them, they left a cairn of alien corpses. The krill had expected a slaughter. They had found hunters in the mist. But the worst came in the forests of Appalachia. A krill hunting pack pursued 3 humans through the pines. A father, his teenage son, and a wounded neighbor. The aliens clicked and buzzed in amusement as they gained ground. Their prey limped, stumbled. Easy kill. Then the humans vanished. The pack slowed, mandibles clattering in confusion. Their antennae tasted the air, too quiet. No birds, no wind. The first trap snapped shut with the crack of bone. A krill warrior fell screaming into a pit lined with sharpened stakes. The others whirled just as arrows hissed from the trees. Crude weapons, yes, but aimed with precision born of generations of hunters. The boy darted between trunks, drawing the krill's attention. One chased him, straight into a deadfall of logs that crushed its carapace flat. By the time the pack retreated, to their pod, half their number was gone. The survivors dripped ichor, their mandibles trembling in something they had never felt before. Fear. Across the planet, these small acts multiplied. In Africa, Maasai warriors painted their shields in alien blood. In the Amazon, tribes turned the jungle itself into a weapon. Vines strangling, pits swallowing, poison arrows finding gaps in alien armor. In Eastern Europe, old militias unearthed weapons caches buried since the Cold War. Humanity was bleeding. But it was not breaking. And in the hive minds of the krill, a whisper began to spread. The prey fights back. On the second day, a report reached the krill fleet. A pod captain, mandibles twitching in shame, bowed before his superior. Casualties. Too many. The prey, they resist. The fleet lord laughed, a clicking rasp that echoed across the command chamber. Resistance? Cattle may kick when slaughtered. It changes nothing. But the pod captain didn't answer. He remembered the farmer's eyes. The fog in the highlands. The boy in the forest. He remembered how it felt. Not to be predator, but quarry. That night, humanity burned. Cities smoldered, screams echoed, the sky was filled with alien wings. Yet in the smoke and blood, something ancient stirred. Not desperation, not submission. Something older, written in the marrow of mankind. The knowledge that when the night brings monsters, you do not flee. You make the monsters bleed. The third night was the worst. The krill had expected resistance, but not losses. Prey could thrash, could bleed, could wound. But prey did not make predators vanish. And yet, that's exactly what began to happen. In the forests of Appalachia, AIU, hunting unit of 12 krill moved under the pale moonlight. Their carapaces gleamed with fresh blood, trophies dangling from their claws. They had fed well. They expected more. The night was still. Too still. The leader clicked his mandibles. Wings, rattling. Fan out. The hunters obeyed, antennae twitching. Their eyes scanned the trees. The forest was alive with scents they could not read. Sap, damp earth, musk, gunpowder. Strange, layered smells that masked their quarry. Then came the laugh. Low, guttural human sound. Somewhere ahead. The hunters froze. Prey should not laugh. Not at night. Not while being hunted. One krill moved toward the sound. Branches snapped. Something shifted overhead. The hunter glanced up just as a steel cable whipped tight around its neck. The creature shrieked, thrashing as it was hoisted into the canopy. Its cries ended in a wet crunch. The forest exploded. Gunshots cracked from the dark, flashing like lightning. Arrows hissed. Firebombs rained from trees. The krill screamed, firing wildly into the shadows. But the shadows moved. Fast. Relentless. One hunter caught a glimpse of a human face smeared in black paint, eyes blazing with primal focus. Then a knife drove through its mandible. By dawn, not one krill remained. Only bloodstains on bark, twisted. Corpses strung up as warnings. The humans didn't just kill, they hunted. And they left their trophies behind. Reports echoed across the fleet. Appalachia was not alone. In the catacombs beneath Paris, a squad of krill vanished. Their last transmission was static mixed with faint human whispers. Later, their armor was found, stacked neatly in a pile, each skull cracked like eggshells. In the tunnels of Tokyo, hunters pursued a family into the dark. The krill thought they cornered them. Instead, pressure-triggered charges brought the ceiling down, sealing the aliens inside with nothing but silence. Weeks later, scouts reported the tunnels stank of decay. No krill had crawled back out. And in the Siberian taiga, entire patrols simply disappeared. A single survivor staggered back to camp, carapace torn, eyes wide. He spoke no words, only shivered, muttering in broken clicks of eyes. In the dark, fear crept into the hive minds. Krill were predators bred for millennia in oceans of their homeworld perfected for the hunt. But their instincts screamed something unfamiliar here. Earth did not feel like open savanna with helpless herds. Earth was thick, wild, full of shadows. And in those shadows lurked something, older than fear itself, rival predators. On the fourth day, the fleet lord summoned his pod captains. His mandibles clicked with disdain. Why do my hunters bleed? Explain these failures. One captain bowed low, ichor dripping from cracked armor. The bipeds. They know the land. They strike unseen. They trap. They bleed. They vanish. They are not prey. The fleet lord slammed, a claw against the command dais cracking the resin. Blasphemy. You compare them to hunters? The captain hesitated. His mandibles twitched. I felt it. The dark watches. The prey stalks us. The chamber fell silent. Such words were forbidden. To suggest prey could reverse the hunt was to suggest weakness. But in every warrior's mind, the thought festered. Meanwhile, humanity adapted faster. Old lessons of guerrilla war came alive. Soldiers fought like wolves. Never in the open, always in packs, striking from where the enemy least expected. Hunters who once stalked deer and boar now stalked armored aliens. Farmers turned irrigation tunnels into ambush sites. Children grew up in a single week, eyes hard, carrying knives. Each night more krill died in places they couldn't see, to weapons they didn't understand, to prey that wasn't prey at all. Each morning, the sun rose on new alien corpses dangling from trees, impaled on steel, drowned in rivers. The message was clear. You are not the hunters here. The krill had landed on Earth as gods descending upon cattle. Now, they whispered among themselves, afraid to patrol without numbers. Their instincts betrayed them. For the first time they hesitated before entering a dark forest. For the first time they were prey. The krill had a word for it: overfeeding. It meant a hunt gone too easily, prey taken too quickly without the chase. It made the predator careless. On the 5th day of Earth's harvest, the krill were bloated with arrogance. Their hunters stalked. Openly now, clicking in laughter as they torched villages, certain resistance was broken. But predators blinded by arrogance never see the jaws closing around them. In New York City, the skyline burned. Towers leaned half-collapsed, the streets choked with ash. Krill hunting packs prowled the avenues, resin spears scraping across cars as they searched for survivors. They thought the city was dead. Then the first shot rang out. A sniper's bullet punched through a krill's skull, scattering yellow ichor across the asphalt. The others shrieked, scanning the rooftops. Nothing. Silence. Another shot. Another alien down. Panic rippled through the pack. They fired plasma wildly into the windows, blasting stone and steel, but the humans were gone before they ever saw them. What the krill did not know was that the city itself had been turned into a labyrinth of death. Every alley a kill zone. Every subway entrance wired with explosives. Every collapsed floor hiding soldiers waiting to strike. The city wasn't abandoned. It was bait. In the ruins of Chicago, a different trap unfolded. A column of krill advanced. Down Michigan Avenue, their armor glinting in the firelight. They dragged a line of human captives behind them, mandibles clattering in cruel amusement. Then came the noise, a faint rumble beneath their claws. Too late, the ground gave way. Pavement collapsed into the subway tunnels below, swallowing the entire column. The krill landed in darkness, antennae twitching furiously. Plasma rifles flared to life, just in time to reveal human faces staring, back from the shadows painted in soot and blood. The tunnels erupted with gunfire, Molotovs, blades. The krill shrieked in confusion, claws scraping stone, but every exit had been sealed. There was no retreat. By dawn, the tunnels stank of smoke and ichor. The captives emerged alive, freed by the very people the krill had dismissed as meat. Word spread quickly. From city to city, the same pattern repeated. In Manila, humans used the labyrinth of shanty towns to funnel krill into choke points where firebombs rained from above. In Moscow, old sewer systems became traps where humans struck with shotguns at point-blank range. In São Paulo, whole neighborhoods lured krill hunters into ambushes, sacrificing their homes to set the aliens ablaze. Everywhere, humans weren't just fighting back, they were planning, coordinating, learning. The krill didn't know it, but Earth was turning into a battlefield designed by the prey themselves. On the 7th day, the Fleet Lord received reports of catastrophic losses. His mandibles clattered with disbelief. How? They scatter, they bleed, they run, yet my hunters fall. A subordinate trembled, ichor dripping from his carapace. They draw us in. They strike unseen. They fight not as prey, but as hunters. The Fleet Lord lashed out, claws raking across the warrior's thorax. Lies, they are cattle, but even he could not ignore the numbers. Packs vanished overnight, casualties mounted. Entire pods silenced. Earth was bleeding the krill dry. For the humans, the change was visible too. Soldiers who once fought defensive battles now carried the war forward. Guerrilla groups grew into networks. Radio codes whispered across continents. Drones scavenged from scrap and jet parts flew like locusts over enemy lines, and more importantly, fear began to spread, but not among humans. Among the Krilldaten, in one chilling broadcast, a group of survivors hijacked a Krill signal. Across every alien channel, a message played, accompanied by footage of their dead piled high. You thought we were prey, but you are in our world now, and here, we hunt. The Krill didn't laugh this time. Their antennae twitched with unease, mandibles grinding in silence. The Fleet Lord ordered harsher measures, chemical fogs, orbital bombardments, mass incinerations. But with each escalation, the humans adapted faster. They turned every weapon back upon their enemy, every slaughter into fuel for vengeance. The trap had already sprung, and the Krill were caught inside it. That night, in the ruins of New York, a squad of human fighters crouched in the shadows. Their leader, a scarred veteran with eyes cold as steel, whispered to his men as a column of Krill passed below. They think they're hunting, he said, but they've forgotten one thing. What's that, sir? A soldier asked. The veteran's gaze never left the aliens. This is our planet, our ground, and here we set the rules. At his signal, the city erupted in fire. The Krill had always trusted their instincts. Instincts had carried them across galaxies, made them apex predators of countless worlds. Instincts told them when prey was near, when danger lurked, when it was time to strike. But on Earth, their instincts betrayed them. Because everywhere they went, something hunted them back. It began in the subway tunnels of New York. A unit of 20 Krill descended into the dark, resin torches casting jagged shadows across tiled walls. Their antennae twitched. The tunnels smelled wrong, of smoke, of oil, of blood. Still, orders were orders. Halfway down the tunnel, the world erupted. Explosives detonated beneath their claws, collapsing concrete. Lights snapped on, blinding in the dark. Silhouettes appeared in the haze. Humans with painted faces, rifles braced. Gunfire thundered in the confined space. The Krill shrieked, returning fire, but the tunnels twisted and branched. The humans disappeared into smoke and shadow, reappearing only to strike again. One by one, the Krill fell, dragged screaming into side corridors where knives waited in the dark. Hours later, when the Fleet Lord demanded a report, no transmission came. Only silence. In the forests of Canada, another pack stalked a snow-covered ridge. They moved cautiously now, antennae twitching at every sound. They had learned fear. A branch snapped. The pack whirled, claws raised, only to see nothing. Then a shape moved above. A massive log, cut and balanced, swung down with crushing force. 3 Krill were flattened instantly, their carapaces shattering like glass. The survivors scattered, plasma rifles hissing. Shadows darted between the trees. Silent. Fast. Merciless. One hunter glimpsed a human face streaked with frost and war paint before an axe split its skull. Another stumbled into a snare, dragged, into the canopy, thrashing as arrows pierced its thorax again and again. By the time the snow settled, the ridge was littered with alien corpses. The humans left them exposed, eyes staring skyward, warnings to every creature that crossed their land. But the most chilling loss came in the ruins of London. A squad of Krill entered the underground, searching for survivors. They found signs of habitation. Fires still smoldering, scraps of food, chalk drawings on the walls. Easy prey. Then the whispers began. Not human voices, mocking echoes, children's laughter. Words they couldn't understand, bouncing off the walls. The hunter's antennae quivered, claws flexing nervously. One raised a torch, revealing dozens of eyes watching from the dark. The humans struck with knives and pipes, silent and brutal. Gunshots rang out, echoing like thunder in the narrow tunnels. The Krill fought back, slashing and shrieking, but the shadows moved faster. One by one, the hunters fell. When reinforcements arrived 2 days later, they found only armor. Neatly stacked. Skulls cracked open, arranged in circles like ritual warnings. The humans had not just killed. They had made a point. Fear became a disease in the hive mind. Krill warriors refused to enter forests without heavy numbers. Patrols trembled at whispers in the night. Antennae twitched at every sound, claws raised at shadows. The Fleet Lord raged, slaughtering his own captains for cowardice, but even his fury could not silence the whispers. The prey had become unpredictable, ruthless, merciless. The prey had become hunters, and humanity was changing too. Survivors no longer hid. They stalked, they baited, they whispered war songs their ancestors had sung in darker times. Across jungles, deserts, and cities, humans sharpened their tactics. They adapted faster than the Krill could comprehend. In one broadcast, hijacked from a captured alien relay, a survivor's voice rang out across the galaxy. "You thought we were prey. You thought wrong. In the dark, in the forests, in the tunnels, we are waiting. You will not hunt us, you will be hunted." The signal carried with it images of alien corpses strung from bridges, impaled on iron, piled high like offerings. For the first time in the Krill's history, an invasion began to falter. Not because their prey resisted, but because their prey terrified them. That night in the Appalachian woods, a small group of human fighters crouched around a fire. One of them, a young woman barely out of her teens, cleaned blood from a hunting knife. Her hands shook, but her eyes were steady. "They keep coming," she said. "They won't stop." An older man, scarred and grim, stared into the flames. "Then neither will we. They want to hunt?" He raised his rifle, jaw tight. "Then let's give them one." The night sky burned. For days, Earth had been the stage of slaughter, its cities collapsing under alien claws. But on the 9th night, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer with fire, because humanity was no longer waiting. Humanity was reaching upward. It began with whispers. Across hidden bunkers and broken radio towers, a single coded phrase spread like wildfire. "The Black Leviathan bleeds tonight." The Leviathan was what survivors had named the Krill mothership that hovered over the Atlantic. Vast as a mountain, its belly glowing with pulsing red slits. From its core, hunting pods rained down like spores, feeding the invasion. Long as it lived, the Krill's grip on Earth would never break, so humanity made a choice. Not to survive, to strike back. On a storm-tossed runway in Iceland, cargo planes sat waiting. Their wings were patched with scrap, their bellies stuffed with explosives scavenged from old war stockpiles. Pilots strapped in with the quiet calm of people who had already made peace with death. "Targets confirmed?" one asked, his voice steady despite the storm outside. A grizzled commander, his uniform torn, nodded. "We won't get another shot. We bleed it tonight or we die as prey tomorrow." Engines roared, drowning out the thunder. One by one, the cargo planes lifted into the black sky, vanishing into the storm. Far below, on fishing trawlers converted into gunboats, resistance fighters braced themselves. Their task was suicidal, to draw the mothership's fire, to make it look downward while death came from above. The sea churned with lightning as the ships opened fire. Homemade missiles streaked into the night, explosions bursting harmlessly against the mothership's carapace. The Krill roared in response, plasma lances raining down, vaporizing ships in blinding flashes. Men and women screamed, burned, drowned, yet more boats pressed forward, firing, shouting defiantly into the storm. Above them, the cargo planes slipped, through the clouds unseen. The mothership loomed ahead, an abyss of alien flesh and steel. Its hull was pitted with spines, glowing with veins of red light. Up close, it looked less like a machine and more like a living nightmare, breathing and pulsing with every beat. The pilots steadied their hands. Their radios crackled with final words, prayers, curses, farewells. Then they dove. One by one, the cargo planes plummeted toward the Leviathan's belly. Anti-air plasma streaked upward, tearing through wings and engines. Explosions lit the sky. But enough planes broke through. Enough reached the target. The first detonated against the ship's underbelly, an eruption of fire and steel that tore open a gaping wound. The second followed, then the third, driving deeper, igniting fuel lines, shattering alien plating. The sea lit up like dawn as the mothership screamed. For the first time since the invasion began, a krill leviathan fell. Body split apart in fire, tumbling into the Atlantic like a wounded beast. Water boiled. Waves rose like walls. Storms whipped into fury as the colossal carcass crashed into the sea. On shorelines across Europe and America, people looked up and saw the impossible, a godlike ship brought down by human hands. They screamed, not in fear but in triumph, but victory came at a cost. The trawlers were gone, reduced to burning wrecks. Most of the pilots never returned, their planes swallowed by fire. In Iceland, radios went silent, no voices left to report success. The price of striking back was blood, rivers of it. And yet in every bunker, every ruined city, every darkened forest, hope ignited like a spark. Because the impossible had been done, the krill could bleed. In the alien fleet, the fleet lord raged. His mandibles cracked, his claws shredded resin walls. Prey cannot strike the hunter. This is corruption. This is foul. But his captains did not answer. Their antennae quivered with unease, their hive minds troubled. Because the truth was undeniable, their invincibility was broken, and predators who know they can die are no longer predators. That night, survivors in New York painted a message across a crumbling skyscraper, visible even to the circling alien scouts. Huge letters in fire and blood. We are coming for you. The message was captured, broadcast, whispered across the galaxy. Humanity had stopped waiting to be hunted. They had become the hunters. The ocean still churned with fire from the fallen mothership when the change began. For the first time since the invasion, humanity didn't just hide, or resist, or survive. They advanced. The fall of the Leviathan spread like wildfire across the planet. Radio signals once choked with static now carried a single message bouncing from bunker to bunker, whispered through shattered cities and ruined forests. They bleed. Strike now. In the deserts of North Africa, militias emerged. From the dunes, their trucks bristling with salvaged weapons, they struck krill convoys under the blazing sun, vanishing into sandstorms before the aliens could regroup. In the jungles of South America, resistance fighters rigged rivers with explosives, collapsing bridges and drowning entire hunting parties in churning water. Locals hunted the survivors with spears, bows, and knives, dragging corpses back into the trees. In Europe's ruins, resistance cells linked together through encrypted signals, coordinating ambushes that spanned countries. From Paris to Warsaw, guerrilla units moved like shadows, striking in the night, vanishing before sunrise. And in Asia, where cities had been scoured by plasma fire, survivors took to the mountains. They built traps in the high passes, raining avalanches down on alien patrols. In the mist, human war drums echoed off stone, filling the air with ancient thunder. Everywhere, Earth fought, not as prey, not as nations, but as predators with one heartbeat. The krill, once so confident, began to falter. They unleashed their war forms, towering monstrosities of fused carapace and plasma, each one the size of a building. These giants lumbered through battlefields, crushing tanks beneath their claws, spitting molten fire, but even giants could bleed. In Ukraine, a war form strode across a ruined highway until the road beneath it collapsed, weakened by weeks of digging. It plunged into the chasm, where hidden artillery opened fire, shattering its body with relentless precision. In Colorado, one of the beasts waded into a canyon, only to find itself caught in a gauntlet of explosives, each cliffside detonating in sequence. When the dust cleared, only its broken husk remained. The krill called them invincible. Humans called them trophies. But the true weapon was not steel or fire. It was patience. Every cryo patrol sent into forests, tunnels, or ruins was met with silence at first, then shadows, then death. Not in open battles, but in cuts, traps, whispers. Like wolves exhausting their prey, humanity harried the aliens until fear poisoned their every step. The Fleet Lord raged, sending wave after wave, but his hunters hesitated. Their antennae twitched at every gust of wind, their claws trembled at every echo. Some even refused to deploy, chittering of eyes in the dark that stalked them. Predators had become prey. In Washington's ruins, a gathering of resistance leaders met beneath the broken dome of the Capitol. Soldiers, tribesmen, hunters, hackers, people who a month before would never have stood side by side. Now they shared one fire, one plan. A scarred colonel stood before them, his voice carrying through the ruins. They thought us weak. They thought us divided. But they forgot what we are. Humanity doesn't yield. Humanity doesn't run. Humanity hunts. His words carried into the night, repeated by 1,000 voices, then 10,000, then more across the airwaves. And from that night forward, the world was no longer preyed upon. It was a hunting ground. The Krill tried to escalate. They called reinforcements from orbit, unleashing heavier ships into the skies. Plasma storms rained across continents. Cities burned, anew, but every strike cost them. Every bombardment drove survivors deeper underground, where they adapted faster than fire could consume them. And for every human city destroyed, a Krill ship burned in the sky. The galaxy had always feared the Krill. To them, the insectoid hunters were legends, harbingers of extinction. But now whispers spread beyond Earth, carried by hijacked signals. The legends were changing. They spoke of prey that fought back, of humans who hunted hunters, of a world that devoured invaders whole. And in the silence of his flagship, the Fleet Lord felt something he had never known in all his centuries of conquest. Doubt. That night, in the Appalachian forests where the resistance had first drawn blood, a pack of fighters prepared for another ambush. A young soldier, face smeared with ash, asked his commander, "Do you think we can win?" The commander stared into the dark trees, listening to the distant hum of alien wings. "We already have," he said quietly. "Look at them. They're afraid." Then he lifted his rifle, eyes sharp. "Now let's finish the hunt." The sky over Earth burned with war. Alien ships hung above the clouds like black suns, their plasma fire scorching continents. Oceans boiled, mountains cracked, cities were erased in firestorms that lit the horizon for days. The Krill had unleashed, their full strength determined to crush the world that defied them. But below the smoke, humanity moved, like shadows in the ruins, like wolves in the wild, like predators circling a wounded beast. The invasion had begun with terror. It ended with silence, the kind that comes before a kill. In the shattered husk of New York, the Krill stalked the streets, their claws dragging across stone. Their mandibles clicked, searching for prey. Yet the city was empty. Too empty. Then, the ground erupted. Hidden charges detonated beneath skyscraper rubble, collapsing whole avenues onto their armored backs. From the shadows, human fighters poured out, rifles flashing, knives glinting. Krill screamed as they were dragged into sewers, torn apart in alleyways buried under concrete. The predators had entered a trap, and they hadn't even realized it. Similar battles raged across the planet. In the Sahara, ambush lines stretched for miles, where desert tribes rode sandstorms like ghosts, striking and vanishing. In Siberia, railguns cobbled from scavenged tech split open alien warforms with thunderous cracks. In the Amazon, hunters with painted faces slid through vines, setting fire to Krill hatcheries with nothing but torches and rage. Everywhere the aliens turned, the prey they once mocked waited with sharpened teeth. The Fleet Lord watched from orbit, mandibles grinding in fury. His hive warriors reported staggering losses, their voices tinged with fear. The more they hunted, the more they were hunted in return. "This world is cursed," one captain whispered. "No," the Fleet Lord hissed. "It is corrupted." Yet even he, warlord of countless conquests, felt it, the unease creeping into his shell. The galaxy had never seen humans as predators. But the galaxy had never been to Earth. The final strike came at dawn. The Resistance had pieced together stolen alien technology, hacking into the mothership's communications. For weeks, engineers, mechanics, and hackers had worked in the dark, building something monstrous, a weapon not of alien design but human will. They called it the HumAlien, a pulse wave emitter, buried deep in the Rockies, tuned to the krill hive mind. When triggered, it would unleash a scream that shattered their coordination, turning hunters into panicked beasts. The moment arrived. Beneath the rising sun, the howl sang. Invisible waves rippled across the atmosphere. Krill warforms froze mid-stride, their claws clattering against stone. Soldiers dropped from the sky, screeching, their wings spasming. Hive commands dissolved into chaos. For the first time in their history, the krill were cut off from each other, and humanity struck. Fighters swarmed burning streets, mowing down stunned aliens. Homemade missiles pierced warships like spears. Traps detonated, ambushes closed, firestorms devoured stragglers. The krill, who once descended on Earth like gods, now scattered like insects beneath a boot. The Fleet Lord roared in denial, ordering a planetary bombardment, but his captains did not obey. Some fled, antennae trembling. Others turned their guns toward retreat vectors, desperate to escape the cursed world. And one by one, the alien ships vanished into the void. The hunt was over. Silence fell across Earth. The skies were blackened, the oceans scarred, the cities broken. Billions had died. Humanity stood bloodied, scarred and grieving, but alive. In the ruins, survivors gathered. Fires burned not as signals of distress, but as beacons of victory. Children painted alien skulls on walls. Old songs were sung in streets where silence had once reigned. And across every continent, the same words rose in a single voice. We are hunters. In orbit, the galaxy listened. The signals carried far beyond Earth, intercepted by countless species. Some trembled, some laughed nervously, some dismissed it as impossible, but all understood the truth. The galaxy had thought humans were prey, and now they knew. Humans hunted back. The legends of the krill shattered that day, and in their place, a new legend was born: the predators of Earth. On a broken battlefield, a scarred resistance commander stood amid alien corpses. His soldiers waited, their rifles still smoking, their eyes hollow but burning. He raised his fist to the sky. They thought we would kneel, he said. But predators don't kneel, predators strike. And when the galaxy remembers Earth, it will not remember prey, it will remember hunters. The soldiers roared with him, voices rolling across the ruins like thunder. For the first time in history, humanity had not only survived an invasion, they had won one. Moral of Part 8. Final. Survival is not enough when predators circle. To live free, humanity became what the galaxy feared most: a species that refuses chains, refuses surrender, and hunts those who would hunt them.